And so this elevation of Torah reflects a shift that begins or starts to occur in the Second Temple period, the late Second Temple period, in which Torah is of growing importance. And in about 2 minutes, we're going to start to talk about this period and the importance and centrality of Torah, its centrality in terms of study, and the study of Torah as a form of worship. So there are many different ways to categorize and classify the Psalms. Many individual psalms seem to combine units that belong to different categories. So for example, you have Psalm 22, which opens as a lament. My God, why have you forsaken me? That's the well-known RSV translation. And then it changes to a hymn of praise. It concludes with this, it goes on into a kind of confident triumph. At least one psalm, Psalm 68, really defies any kind of rigid categorization. So we can't be too strict in trying to impose these forms. They are helpful guides to the interpretation of the Psalms. But again, we can't be too rigid about it. But from the sampling that we've seen, it should be apparent that the Psalms are a microcosm of the religious insights and convictions of ancient Israelites. Perhaps because so many of them lack historical specificity. Some of them are quite historical. Some of them, in fact, recount Israel's history in order to praise God. But many of them, very, very many of them, lack any real historical specificity. And that is probably the reason that the Psalms have become a great source for personal spirituality in Western civilization. Some of them were composed perhaps as many as 3,000 years ago, and yet they can be inspiring or they can feel relevant to contemporary readers. They can provide an opportunity to confess one's failings, or to proclaim good intentions, or to rail against misfortune, or to cry out against injustice, or to request assistance, or to affirm trust in divine providence, or to simply express emotions of praise and joy and wonder at creation, or reflect on human finitude in the face of divine infinitude. I mentioned briefly the centrality of Torah. Actually, no, let me finish talking about Psalms and also move on to another major poetic work. Then we'll come back to talk about the Restoration period. Another poetic book within the anthology of the Hebrew Bible is the little work known as the Song of Songs. And for many people, this is perhaps the most surprising book to be included in the Hebrew canon. It's a beautiful and very erotic love song that celebrates human sexuality and physical passion. The line seems to be a late superscription that attributes the book to Solomon. And it seems more likely, however, that these sensuous love lyrics are post-exilic. The attribution to Solomon was probably fueled by the fact that in 1 Kings chapter 4, we read that Solomon, or there's a tradition there that Solomon uttered 3,000 proverbs and 1,005 songs. So it seems natural to attribute this song to Israel's most prolific composer of songs and proverbs, according to tradition. The speaker in the poem alternates. Most often it is a woman. She seems to be addressing her beloved. Sometimes she addresses other women, the daughters of Jerusalem. At times the speaker is a man, but he's not identified as Solomon. Solomon's name is mentioned about 6 times, but Solomon is not said to be one of the speakers, and for the most part, the main speaker is female.